let us deal with encounters of what we would classify as extraterrestrials. As we go into the book, Chariots of the Black Gods, the UFO Reality and the Alien Hoax by Wesley Muhammad, we're going to begin with an encounter that took place in 1950. Dr. Enrique Corret Bassa was a 40-year-old World War II pilot, an aeronautical engineer of Italian nationality, working in Argentina. One night in mid-May, Dr. Bassa was driving along the highway to his hotel in an isolated Argentine region called Bahia Blanca when he saw off the highway a metallic dome-top discoid object resting on the ground to his left. Curious, Dr. Bassa pulled over to investigate. After watching the grounded object from some distance for a period, Bassa's curiosity overcame his apprehension, and he decided to get a closer look. A hatch door was open, and Bassa looked inside, observing a red light pulsating in the dome. Because he didn't sense any presence in the object, Bassa entered it. There he was confronted with three seemingly lifeless human bodies. After touching one of the bodies, it was then, Dr. Bassa said, that some inner voice told him to get out as soon as possible, as he was in the presence of strange life, and he rushed out the craft and into his car, speeding off. Dr. Bassa immediately shared his experience with two colleagues who were fellow engineers. The next morning, the three of them returned to the scene armed with both a camera and revolvers. At the scene of last night's encounter, the craft was no longer present. In its place was only a still warm pile of ashes. As the three engineers were examining the site, they observed above them three aerial objects, a larger cigar-shaped object at great altitude. A large cigar-shaped object at great altitude, and below it, two similar discoid objects. Now, y'all remember these cigar-shaped. I said that. I repeated that on purpose. Y'all just remember these cigar-shaped objects. I'm going to show y'all some at the end of this video. Okay. Bassa began taking pictures, and of the 5 photographs he took, 2 of them clearly caught one of the objects. Then the group of engineers felt that they were observed during their search, and picture taken for the 2 discs shot up. Wait a minute. Yep. Merged with the cigar-shaped object, which, after traveling horizontally for a short distance, turned blood red, made a 90-degree turn and disappeared into space in a few seconds, ascending vertically. Let me read that one more time. Then the group of engineers felt that they were observed during their search, and picture taking for the 2 discs shot up, merged with the cigar-shaped object, which, after traveling horizontally for a short distance, turned blood red, made a 90-degree turn and disappeared into space in a few seconds, ascending vertically. This is defying gravity. The technology that they have is probably a million years beyond the technology of this world. Okay, let's continue. For weeks after entering the craft and touching the ashes, Dr. Bassa suffered from a high fever and skin blistering. He is eminently credible. He is an eminently credible witness, according to Leonard H. Stringfield, because of the character of the man and his professional standing. It is difficult to believe the story is a hoax. Dr. Bassa is one witness with more than usual credentials to make his story credible. Carl E. Lorizing agrees. His reputation is beyond reproach, and he is at present working for the Venezuelan government. Dr. Bassa moved to Venezuela in 1953 and kept the encounter private among him and his 2 colleagues until after the UFO event in around Caracas in the fall of 1954. At that time, Bassa decided to go public with his encounter. He contacted the Caracas, Venezuela daily newspaper, El Universal, and shared his experience, but asked to remain anonymous. The story ran on of May 7, 1955. It featured a photo of Dr. Bassa wearing dark glasses and talking to a reporter. The story also featured one of the photos Dr. Bassa had taken of the UFO. The Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization was granted permission to scrutinize the photos, and in 1955 they announced, "We have carefully examined the negative and the prints furnished us. Okay? And have decided that if any pictures purported to be of UFO are genuine, those certainly are. So they have apparently confirmed it. Now, let's take a look at what we got going on right here. This is supposed to be the documentation of what pictures that he had taken and them examining it. So, yeah. Well, let's keep it pushing. Dr. Bossa then produced sketches of the exterior and the interior of the craft and its occupants and gave detailed descriptions of both. Based on his experience as an aeronautical engineer, according to Dr. Bossa's description, the exterior of the craft was 32 feet in diameter and 13 feet in height. It had a tower with 2 windows 6 feet high. The interior of the craft was 7 feet high and contained no pipes or cables. My thing is, how can you get this exact description? Like, well, come on now, get real. What the fuck? Did he pull out a tape measure and measure all this shit? Or he making this shit up? Okay, I'm just, using common sense. Okay, anyway, the interior of the craft was 7 foot high and contained no pipes or cables. A curved shelf around the circumference of the interior contained 3 seats and a control panel. In front of the center seat was a TV-like screen, and on top of it was a rotating glass globe. Dr. Boss's description of the beings he encountered in the craft, the little men, as he called them, is clear. 3 little men were seated in soft arm chairs. Hey, soft arm chair. Nah, I told y'all about my encounter that I had, that I was sitting in a soft arm chair like it was a recliner. And getting my blood pressure checked. Anyway, moving on. They were dead. They were about 4 feet in height. In appearance, they were human, equal to ourselves with eyes, nose, and mouth. The color of their hair was gray chestnut, cut short. Their skin was bronze. Their face was dark. Huh? They were dressed in tight-fitting overalls of a gray lead color. In describing the faces and the skin of the little men, Dr. Bossa used the language tobacco brown, dark or charred, and burnt. The lips were slightly swollen, i.e., they were Negroid lips. They had a handsome countenance. Their eyes were light-colored, either blue, green, or gray, and light in the craft was too dim for him to distinguish which light color the eyes were. Excuse me. Now, remember, he saw this cigar shape, and now he's describing these little bronze-skinned, melanated, humanoid people that look like so-called Negroes or black people today. Now, this is the description in which we are shown sketch of the craft based on the witness's description. Okay, and here we have shit. That shit blurry. Anyway, this is supposed to be a description of it. Those are the little windows it had. He gave out the height and all that, the description of it. So, I ain't gonna make this video long. Every other day I'm gonna drop another video concerning these people's encounters with these extraterrestrials. Okay, so-called extraterrestrial, when in fact they coming from out of the earth, most of them. They coming from our inner earth, because we know that Agartha has space outports and imports. Okay, we know that the inner earth, the Agarthian network, as well as the Melchizedekian network, in the Catharians, the Lemurians, the people of Mu, the ancient Anu people, the little bit of short, brunt-skinned people that are navigating these flying saucers, they are coming from the inner earth. As the Bible has already given, God came from T-Man and the Holy One from Mount Paran, meaning that the gods are coming from out of the earth, from within the earth. Let's not get it twisted. If the Agarthian network that is in direct correlation or communion with Shambhala would like to call on the Galactic Brothers, they can. Because Shambhala is an outport for Sirius. This is why the Quran says, He, Allah, is the Lord of Sirius. Okay? So he's operating in 2 different realms and dimensions at that. Because when you read about the king of the world that lives in Agartha, you will know that he has this superior power. Let us not forget that there's a very detailed account concerning the king of the world in the book Beasts, Mans, and Gods by Ferdinand Osendawaski. Now here we have the images again. Now let's see the images of the inside. This is the layout in which Dr. Bossa had drawn up. So you had the couch-like chairs right here, as you can see. Let me turn it for you. Okay, they chilling. Big chilling. Big chilling. Now remember, these crafts are not operated how we operate a vehicle, like in today's time. These crafts are operated with their minds. Okay, but let's keep it pushing. In Dr. Boss's letter to the Swiss journal, Licaria Interplanetary, he gives the following account. As soon as my eyes got used to the light, I saw an eerie scene. In the center of the cabin, with a diameter of about 3.5 meters, there was a strange seat on which a 1.4 meter tall man in a lead-colored jumpsuit was sitting. His round head was sparse. Blonde hair fell on his chest. His beautifully shaped, light tobacco-colored hands were clutching two handles stick. Wait a minute. So this spaceship is operated with something like what we drive. Okay. Okay, got like handles on it. So it says his beautiful shaped, light tobacco-colored hands were clutching two handles sticking out of a black box a few centimeters from his body. The face was the same color as the hands, with a graceful straight nose, without a mustache or stubble on the cheeks. His glazed eyes were large and very wide open. The shape of his body, as far as I could see it, was completely human, without any animal traits. He looked like a 15-year-old boy, but with the proportions of a man. He wasn't a dwarf. I touched his hand. It was stiff and his face was cold. The jumpsuit fit snugly to the neck and wrist. The legs rested slightly on two tubes located on the floor and serving as a support. It seemed that the jumpsuit was made of thick leather and it was inflated on the shoulders. Listen, the jumpsuit was made of thick leather. Remember, this is the same craft, okay, that turned into a cigar shape. Okay, now let's keep it pushing. It was made of thick leather and it was inflated on the shoulders, which gave the pilot the appearance of a rugby player. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. His center bar red seat matched the shape of the pilot's body and stood in front of the central control panel. Boss's above statement is worth emphasizing. The shape of his body, as far as I could see it, was completely human, without any animal traits. He looked like a 15-year-old boy, but with the proportions of a man. He wasn't a dwarf. These beings were dark brown-skinned men that looked as though they were 15 years old. Bossa told Dr. Horacio, however you say that shit, Gonzalez, the Venezuelan representative of APRO, that the UFO pilots that he saw were far from being tall, handsome blondes that alleged contactee George Admisky claimed to have encountered. I am not convinced that the men that Bossa encountered in the craft were actually dead. This strikes me as a case of divine possum. So he's saying that they might have been faking like they was dead. God damn. So that's why the craft wound up missing the next day. I also don't assume that the warm ashes that Bossa and his colleagues encountered the next day were the remains of the incinerated UFO. This whole incident feels to me like divine stagecraft. The gods do not operate in this fashion. Anyway, until next time, we'll talk about another encounter, because in this here book, when I tell you it's loaded with documented encounters of black extraterrestrials, as you can see. Chariots of the Black Gods. The UFO reality and the alien hoax. Now let's not forget about the cigar-shaped craft in which Dr. Bossa encountered these brown-skinned beings.
A cigar-shaped ship appeared over the Air Force Base. These cigar-shaped ships were over a mile in length. One of them landed on the airport landing strip area. When it touched the ground, it created an earthquake like about a 3.5 to 4.0. It terrified everybody in the area. The back of this craft opened up, and several hundred young men with huge, heavy weapons came out of two sides of the ship and formed a protection line around the ship. And the people at that Air Force Base, the commander, had a meeting with the individuals that were aboard this ship. And this particular race that landed those ships and that are seen in these huge cigar-shaped ships, they are a black race. They looked like African Americans. They were about 6'4", 6'5", these tight-fitting black leather outfits on, and the weapons that they came out of the ships with, they were huge weapons. And if you've ever seen a race of people that were conquerors, that had never been conquered, they've got this look about them of arrogance. That is exactly what these extraterrestrials had, and they informed these people at this American Air Force base that not only were they from a militaristic society, but they had controlled a large portion of the galaxy that we live in.